Hello, I'm Cassandra, and this is Tori, and welcome back to the fourth episode of What's on Your Mind podcast. So today we're going to be talking about the Rappaport exercise that we both utilize within our couples sessions. So Tori, you want to take us off with that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Gottman Rappaport is a framework for conversations,
Right.
essentially. I find that couples really struggle with feeling understood in relationships. And so this is a great framework to make sure that both parties feel understood. So it's about slowing everything down to start. And we know that understanding comes first before compromise, before problem solving. So what the Rappaport does, it breaks it into speaker and listener. So you have two roles with various responsibilities under each role. Very simply put, the speaker's responsibilities are to speak honestly and freely about how they think and feel on whatever topic it is we're talking about. We want to encourage them to use I language and to express their needs if there are any, so that the other person can really understand what's going on for that person. We want to try to help the other person understand, not try to convince them of our
Right.
perspective. So you're really just kind of like painting a picture, really. And the more information, the more like emotional, I guess I shouldn't say emotional, but like the more descriptive you can be, the
Right.
better in terms
Yeah.
of helping that other person understand what's really going on for you.
Mhm.
That's pretty simple for the
Yeah.
speaker side of things, I think, right? Just own how you think and feel.
Yeah.
Speak honestly, which does involve vulnerability. I mean, I should acknowledge that, but it's relatively simple. Now, on the listener side of things, I think it's more challenging for many folks. It really involves taking all your thoughts and feelings and gently placing them to the side and really attuning to what the other person is saying, right? So
Yeah.
you can't be thinking about your own stuff when you're doing that. You really need to suspend that. And if you're starting to think about how you're going to respond to what your partner is saying, that's a telltale sign that your stuff is actually right in front of your face and it's impeding your ability to listen. So if you can't reorient yourself and put your thoughts and feelings back to the side, you really do need to take a bit of a break. And that's okay, right? Like we talked about in the past, taking breaks is fine. It's far better to take a break than to not listen, right? Because then your partner's not going to feel heard and then they're not going to want to be vulnerable. And then you end up in couples counseling with us and it creates issues, right? So
Right.
let's start off on a really good foot and try to just listen to understand. Now, I'm
Beautiful.
going to take a drink. But listening to understand, it makes me think about you don't have to agree
Mm,
with your partner in order to understand them.
yeah.
That's a hang up that I think a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah, I was that was actually an area that I would say I was going to point out is an area
Hmm.
that is really difficult for people because I think they outside of wanting to have their point heard, they they have trouble maybe squaring the idea that you can hear what your partner is saying and still not agree with it, but you can still
Exactly.
come at it with compassion. It doesn't have to be, what was it? It's like validation doesn't mean compliance, right? Like it doesn't mean that
Sure.
you're going with it. It
Exactly.
just means that you're hearing what they're saying, you're seeing what they're saying, and you're accepting it as that's their viewpoint.
Both perspectives are valid.
Yeah,
They're rooted in each other's realities. It's not
right.
about one's right and one's wrong. They're both right, and they
Yeah,
both can be held at the same time. So if you get away from that, oh, I have to agree to understand, it makes things so much easier.
yeah.
Um, yeah, essentially that,
Yeah.
right? What else do I want to say about the listener? So what did I say in terms of suspending your judgment, not listening to answer, but listening to understand,
Mhm.
um, taking a break if you need to. Oh, okay. So Once the speaker is done speaking, we really encourage that listener provide a bit of a paraphrase so that the
Hmm.
speaker feels understood. A lot of times people will say, I understand, or like nod their head, yep, yep, I get it.
Yeah.
But it's like, what are you getting? I don't really know what you're taking
Yeah.
away from what I'm saying as a speaker. And so that paraphrase really allows the speaker to understand, okay, the listener gets it, it's in their own words. And it also is an opportunity for the speaker to say, actually, you missed a spot. Like you missed a part that's really important, and I want you to understand. Clarifies things right up in the moment, right?
Yeah. I would
Yeah.
also add that I notice, and I don't know if you notice this with your couples occasionally, but I've noticed that sometimes when someone is re-summarizing what they've heard,
Mhm.
they have a tendency to center themselves again instead of,
What do you mean by that?
as in, they're hearing what their partner is saying and instead of going, okay, this is how they're feeling in this moment, it must be difficult. They're going, oh, this is either how I would feel in this.
Oh, they're thinking
um
about themselves again
yeah, or they kind of latch onto one thing and bulldoze forward
and
with.
forget the other stuff that the
Yeah.
other person said, the
Hmm.
speaker said. Yeah,
Yeah.
that definitely does happen for sure. And it's, our role as therapists to point that out, right? And to slow things down and keep everyone back on track and really teaching these skills, right? So
Yeah,
that couples have them to utilize between sessions, right? That's where the real work takes place.
sure.
Um, but yeah, I what else was I going to say? So speaker speaks, listener listens, speaker's done speaking, listener paraphrases to the speaker's satisfaction, right?
Hmm.
If the speaker wants to add something else to further understanding, no problem, or clarify something,
Yeah.
great. If the speaker feels understood, then I mean, if you really want to go for it here and be a star communicator, the listener can provide some empathy.
Yeah.
Like it makes sense to me that you're
Yeah.
feeling da da
Or I
da
could see
da.
how that would make you feel, or yeah.
Yeah, it does
I
sound hard
Yeah,
or something.
I
Right?
usually I usually say channel your inner therapist for a minute there, right? Like, yeah, that would be hard, right? Like what you hear your therapist
No, it
say to
would
you.
be. It would be. That
And
empathy.
yeah.
It
So,
makes the speaker really feel understood. I
mhm.
often tell folks that if you really want to make your partner feel heard, go to that more emotional place.
Yeah,
Like speak to the emotions that your partner is telling you that they're having.
definitely.
That's when people feel heard. Right? Because you're
Yeah.
not talking about the surface level stuff. You're not talking about the factual stuff. You're talking about how it really impacted them.
Hmm.
And if the speaker really feels like you get that, that like there's nothing more satisfying than that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So then you switch essentially. So now the listener becomes the speaker and the speaker is the listener and you follow the same framework. And the idea is that you just both feel understood at the end of it. We're not talking about problem solving yet, like we said. We're not talking about compromising. All of that follows
Hmm.
this. If you don't understand what your partner is saying, how can you fix it? How can you be influential?
Right.
Um, People don't accept influence on things that they don't feel the other has an understanding on. So like if I was really upset by something, but I didn't think my partner understood, and he starts telling me ways to fix it, well, I'm not going to listen to him because I
Right.
don't think he gets it yet.
Yeah.
Right? Like taking apart a computer, I mean, you can try and fix it, but if you don't know what all the parts do, well, good luck to you. Right? Like you don't
Yeah.
understand it. It's the same type of thing, right? So
Yeah.
we're just trying to slow down, conversational turn taking. No one's interrupting anybody. We're going to make sure that first person feels heard first, and then we're going to go on to the second person. Doesn't really matter who starts, but typically what ends up happening is just the person who started speaking happens to be the speaker, right? They
Yeah.
fall into that. They're the person who's coming to the other person to share something, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, I'm talking a lot. What do you want to add to this? What did I not cover? What did I not
Um,
mention?
I think you covered it really, really well. I'm just trying to look at my own notes here for a second and see if there was anything. I would also add that reminding the client that behind a complaint or negative emotion, that that's usually a want or a need. And so
Hmm.
that needs to be heard, uh, which just kind of jumps off what you were saying, right? Is if you're feeling
Yep.
validated or heard, you're more apt to hear the other person and vice versa. So going into that with that knowledge can really be helpful too, because it sort of changes your framework of what you're looking for. You're not on defense basically, right? You're going into it going, oh, okay, well, my partner has, a complaint or has a big emotion. What's the need, or what could the need be that they might have? And how do I help them communicate that by listening?
Absolutely. I think you really brought up an important point around like perspective. If you come in it with a sense of curiosity
Mhm.
and love, like I really want to understand what my partner is going through. I want to be able to meet their needs.
Yeah.
That sets the tone for the conversation versus I'm right, you're wrong,
Mhm.
or one of us is right, and we're competing to be who's right.
Yeah.
And we end up having two speakers in those situations, which
Yeah.
I see a lot of the times. Two people just want to be heard so bad
Yeah.
that they're just both talking at each other. And it's like, hold on a second. No one's listening. We need to take turns here. Hold on. One
Yeah.
person at a time.
Yeah.
And before we move on to the other person being heard, we got to make sure that initial person feels heard. If
Yeah.
that initial person does not feel heard, pardon me, they are not going to listen to the next person.
Yeah.
It's not
No.
going to happen. If
Yeah,
you
it's
and I
all
were
off the rails.
talking and I just shared something with you, very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you start talking about yourself. And I'm like, hold on a second. Did you even hear what I said? I'm not going to listen to you.
Right. Yeah.
And I see that so much. And
Hmm.
it's so frustrating because it's such a simple tweak
Oh,
that makes
yeah.
a world of difference in
Yeah.
terms of if a conversation is going to be fruitful or not.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Look at
Cool.
us.
Right. I know, right? It's like we've done it before.
Like we do it
All
every
day, every
day.
day, 6 days a week. Do we want to illustrate what this looks like maybe just like a brief example of the speaker listener
Sure.
framework? Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. Do you want me to be the speaker first?
Um, oh
Or do you want to be
gosh.
the speaker?
No, you be the speaker first.
You want me
I
to be the
will
speaker?
I will pretend to take notes, or I'll really
Okay.
take notes.
Okay.
I'll
Well,
be
okay. I don't know how descriptive I'm going to be. I have to come up with a good example. Maybe like a personal one. I'm
okay.
trying to
Oh, yeah. So
think.
we'll just do therapy real quick. It's fine.
Right, exactly. Okay, how about, okay, so I'm the speaker.
Mhm.
So I get really upset when I see recycling left around, when I see dishes in the bedroom, when the bath mat isn't picked up. It really bothers me and it actually makes me feel overwhelmed, really. Like my environment has such a big impact on how I feel. And so, like, when I have a clean environment, like my office is clean. And so I feel a sense of peace when my office is clean. And when I navigate the rest of the home, I see things that are out of place, like clearly out of place. And like they really don't belong there. It bothers me to the point where I just do it. I'll just fix it, right? I'll take out the recycling, I'll put away the dishes, I'll do whatever it is, right? Hang that bath mat up because it bothers me. But I'm starting to feel like I'm picking up after you. I'm like following you around the house almost is what it's starting to feel like. And I just can't keep up. Like I'm afraid I'm going to start to resent you. So this is how I'm feeling. I'm hoping you're getting it.
Okay. So it sounds like you're upset, frustrated, even a little resentful, right? That the environment in which you're in is messy and chaotic because of some responsibilities that I'm not taking care of. And so it sounds like I could see how that would be really overwhelming and frustrating if what you need in order to function is to have a clean house. then I could see how me not upholding my responsibility would affect that. Am I missing anything?
No, I think you're getting it. Like you really did touch on the emotion. Like I feel really overwhelmed and my environment is such a big impact on like my mental health. And so I take great care in how I am like starting my day,
Mhm.
right? So like I hang that bath mat up. I clear, last night's snack dishes and I bring them down to the kitchen and I like, maybe I'll even do a quick vacuum.
Mm,
Because then I feel like everything's in order and I have a clear mind.
yeah.
But when I see other things in disarray, yeah, it really bothers me. So I think you touched on all that. I think you get it.
Okay. So when I
Yeah.
don't do it, does that send a different message to you? Like,
Well, I think I don't think I've told you so explicitly like this
sure.
before. So like I haven't really given you a chance to like do anything different. But I hope by telling you you're going to do something different.
Okay.
But yeah, sometimes I feel a little unloved,
Mm,
right? Like if I'm like it clearly bothers me, right? And these are in my mind little things that you could
sure.
do to help me out. And when you don't do them, yeah, sometimes it does make me feel unloved.
Mm, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry that that makes you feel unloved because, yeah, I could see how that would be stressful. Again, I would like to know, what can I do to help with that? What do you need from me?
Yeah, what do I need? Well, in an ideal world, like you would also hang up the bath mat or
Okay.
within a realistic timeline, and I'm not gonna just determine that myself, but like between the two of us, what a realistic timeline would be to just
Yeah.
have things in its place, right? So, like dishes in the dishwasher, that type of thing would just be helpful.
I think I can help with that.
Wonderful. Good. I'm excited.
Okay, great. Okay.
Okay,
So I
cool.
didn't want to
So
make
that
it
was a
too
really
easy for you when I was doing it. So I was trying not to hit on everything. So
no, I
hopefully,
loved it.
okay,
That was really good. I genuinely felt heard. So
good.
good
Good.
job.
Okay.
Okay. So that's it. That's the rapport.
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty straightforward for most people once you get them in the swing of it. Um, do you normally make them stick to it pretty strictly when they're starting off?
When they're starting off, I encourage more of the structure, like the volleying back and forth,
Yeah.
so that the speaker really does feel heard. That's of the
Okay.
utmost importance, right? That's the whole
Yeah.
goal of this framework. Now, what I do say to clients is over time, you will make it more of your own. It'll be
Right.
less structured, less wooden. The Gottman method is proven to be very what's the word? Like structured, I suppose. I'll use that word
Mhm.
again. Which I think people actually need when they're first starting out.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like training.
one thing I definitely hear a lot of is a lot of couples appreciate having that sort of step-by-step
Yeah,
process of how to communicate differently, especially when you're asking them to communicate completely differently than maybe what they're used to communicating.
totally.
It can be a big ask, right?
Yeah, for sure. So many different clients with different needs, right? Like some
Mm.
really appreciate that structure. Some are like, man, that sounds like a boardroom meeting. Like, don't really know if we're
Right.
going to do it.
Yeah.
And then I give other silly examples of the rapport that are like very, I think they have the same principles, but they're different, right? So an example
Mm.
could be my partner yells up to me from downstairs to throw him down something.
Mm.
Well, I, as the listener in that situation, could say, okay, yep, throwing you down tea cloths or something, or tea towels, right?
Yeah.
And he'd be like, yep, okay, thanks. And so I'm paraphrasing back what he said. He's like, throw down some tea towels. And I say, okay, throwing down some tea towels. That is like a bit of a paraphrase. Because what if I, thought he said, I don't know, bath towels?
Right.
I'd throw him down some bath towels and then he's not getting what he needs,
Hmm.
right? So just that quick paraphrasing to make sure my partner knows that I heard him
Yeah.
and that I'm getting him what he needs is helpful. So even like micro interactions between you and your partner
Mm.
throughout like a daily basis, on a regular basis in your home, and there's kids everywhere and there's lots going on, you
Yeah.
still can practice that speaker, okay, I
Yeah.
heard you. This is what I heard. All right, action.
Yeah. So when you have um somebody that's like a right fighter, right? They want to or they get stuck on helping. What how do you see the Rappaport helping for that?
Stuck on like fixing it, stuck on helping.
Yeah, to where they go past the validating and they
They
jump
go
right.
past the understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tell, well, first of all, I like highlight that their skills are important, just like that are well developed, not at this point, right?
Yeah.
And like we already explained, I often tell them how important that understanding piece is. If you don't feel
Yeah.
understood, they're not going to take that really good advice or that like good problem
Mhm.
solving, right? And so we want
Sure.
them to feel like what they have actually gets through their partner. So by
Yeah.
taking this extra step, they feel like even more successful in what they want to do.
Yeah.
So I'm showing them how their skills can be utilized in like the most effective way possible.
Okay. Yeah. I like
That's
that.
typically what I would do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just what I see recently with a lot of couples is there's one dynamic of an individual wanting to go right to the fix it and they think they're validating, but instead they've sort of bulldozed right past it and just getting them to slow down a lot of times or even just
Totally.
recognizing that they're doing it or recognizing that their partner is shutting down when they do that and then nobody's getting anything that they need.
Exactly. Yep. No, that's all very true. And I too see that a lot. People
Yeah.
just want to get it over with a lot of the times. Like,
Hmm.
let's just fix it and let's move
Yeah.
on. The other person really wants that processing time to feel understood. That dynamic is very common. But I think the
Yeah.
rapport really meets both people's needs.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. All
Okay.
right. So that's the rapport. Do we have time to talk about compromise or do we leave
Um,
that?
yeah, I think we can.
Yeah? Okay,
Sure,
cool.
let's do it.
Do you want me to talk about it? Do you want to start us off? It doesn't
Um,
matter.
you can start us off.
Yeah, I'll start us off. Cool. Okay. So the Gottmans talk about the art of compromising. It looks like two ovals or circles that are overlapping each other. So I often call it like a donut or a bagel. But so the center oval, the small
Yeah,
one, and we want to keep this circle or oval as small as possible. These are your core needs. These are the
right.
things that are of the utmost importance. You are not flexible on these
Yeah,
things. So you're really rigid. These things have to be met.
your
And then the
non-negotiables.
outer oval is or are the flexible areas. And
Right.
so this is things that you are by nature willing to move on a bit,
Hmm.
right? So I think about like the who, what, where, how type
Yeah.
things, right? Of whatever it is. So as long as my core need is met, it's really nice and small and specific. The rest I'm willing to wiggle on. So if
Right.
both parties, if both halves of the couple know what their core needs are, and are willing to be flexible on most things, the idea is that they can overlap, that we
Mm,
can have it so that both people really get what they truly need.
right.
What I often hear, which drives me nuts, is the people think compromise is like moving towards the middle. Like you give up
Yeah.
some, I'll give up some, and then we're here. Well, my biggest problem with that is you're both giving up things that could be part of that core need, that core
Yeah.
circle. And if either of you giving up parts of the core needs, there's going to be resentment there. No one should give
Sure.
up core pieces of themselves, right? And I've
Yeah.
seen some really tough ones. Like I've seen people who like my core needs to live in Vancouver, my core needs to live in Toronto. Well, oh my goodness, what do you do with that? Right?
True. Yeah.
And so, or
Yeah.
like, I want one baby, I want two babies.
Yeah.
Like, oh my word, again, what do you do with that?
Right.
Well, when working with myself, what I do is I really try and get as specific as possible what those core needs are. So maybe for the person who wants two babies, it's not actually two babies. Maybe it's a big family, or maybe
Mhm.
it's family time in general. And they think
Right.
more kids equals more
Happiness.
family time or something.
Yeah.
So we dig a bit deeper, right? We get more and more specific. We concentrate it down even more so for both folks
Right.
to again make those flexible areas as large as possible.
Yeah.
Same with the location one, right? Like the person who wants to live in Vancouver, well, maybe it's they want to be close to water, or they
Yeah.
really like being near the mountains. And the person who likes Toronto really likes the city. It's like, okay, well, we can maybe work with that, right? It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be those locations per se, but maybe areas in which have each of
Yeah.
those core needs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I would just add that I like to look at it as you're finding that sort of common ground of whatever it is, and like you said, making it as large of a common ground as possible.
Exactly. You
Um,
want to compromise with your partner as if you love them, right? Like you
right, yeah.
want them to get their core need met. You don't
Yeah,
want to have it
yeah.
inverted where it's like my core needs are huge, my
Mhm.
flexible areas are really small.
Yeah.
Um, because we
Have,
hope that they're doing the same thing for you too, right?
yeah,
Like that they're willing to give up a lot of things that don't really matter so much as
right.
long as they get what they truly need out of it.
Yeah, what do you find is the most common like need that people come with or like compromise that people have tried to work on but struggle with?
Most common?
Hmm.
Oh my goodness. I mean,
Sorry,
it can
putting you on
be
the spot now.
no, I'm just thinking like it could be very simple things about how people keep a house, like I was
Yeah.
talking about in my example. It could
Hmm.
be around parenting. It could be around finances.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time coming up with like the most common. Of course, the ones that are the hardest stand out to me, like the child one or like
Yeah.
the geographic location one.
Sure.
Um, yeah, I actually don't really know what the most common. What do you see?
Um, I would say that I see more how the household is run is kind of, or even just like like how you raise your children, those sorts of things seem to be the biggest. And I wonder if it's just because people, that's where you spend most of your space, right? Is at your
True.
home, around your children, if you have children, or, your pets
Yeah.
or whatever. So that is
Yeah.
going to be the loudest area. Uh, I'm also curious, and I don't know if this is something you've observed, but I'm curious whether if a couple has a good love map going, a good updated one, whether that allows them to compromise better because you are going into that knowing what is important to your partner and
Mm,
wanting to give them that and vice
mm,
versa. And so, and because it's so up to date, right? It's so forefront in your mind. It's
mhm.
not necessarily easier, maybe that's not the right word for it, but I don't know the right word for it. Maybe easier isn't the right word. It's
Um, well, maybe it's just like more accessible, right? Like
okay, fair.
you know what would. Okay, so my answer to that would be I don't know if it makes it the compromise easier having up-to-date love maps, but what I do think it does is it it takes having to have some of the conversations out of it because you already know what your partner's core needs are. Like maybe
Mhm.
you've already had other conversations around
Yeah.
what's important to your partner. And so when they say a clean home, they already know what I'm talking about
Yeah,
because
they know what
I've
that
already explained
entails.
this
Yeah.
previously, right? So it's like
Yeah.
already having some like conversations under your belt so
Hmm.
you don't have to have all the conversations right now,
Yeah.
right? While you're having the compromising conversation.
Sure.
Um, yeah. So I think that
How
would.
do you also see, like, I know before I was learning like the Gottman method, a lot of what I was researching or learning was about expectations in a relationship and how expectations can really affect the outcome of a relationship or the struggles that can happen in a relationship, as in like one partner expects or has the expectation of, oh well, I'm going to stay at home and my partner's going to go work, and so when that expectation is violated, they get disappointed, that creates resentment, and then they argue.
Right.
um, when I went into the Gottman method, that's, I feel like it's still there kind of, but I don't know that
People still have
that's,
expectations. People still have
yeah.
needs.
Well, but I
Yeah.
feel like it's more towards needs and less expectations. Does that make sense? Where it's
I
your
wonder
focus.
if those are like synopsis. Like, I wonder if they're one of
Okay.
the same. Like, it's normal to have needs. There's no
Yeah.
such thing as being needy, Julie
Right.
Gottman says. And I believe that, right? And I
Yeah.
don't think anyone should um, lower their expectations
Yeah.
because again, that leads to resentment, right? My needs are going unmet and my needs are reasonable, right? So that's not a good solution, is to just
Right.
care less or to not be impacted. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
What I would say is just communicate what your needs are, right? So through the
Hmm.
rapport, these are my needs. This is why it's important to me. And
Yeah.
hopefully the person on the listening end listens, shows that they understand, and then can I meet those needs? If
Hmm.
you can meet someone's need outright, we want to just do that, right?
Yeah.
If you can hang the bath mat up, awesome, right? If you really can't or you don't think you're going to, it's
Yeah.
far better to tell me that you're not going to be able to do it.
Hmm.
Or maybe we can compromise and whoever's
Yeah.
out of the shower last can hang it up
Yeah.
or something like that, right?
Right.
Um, that I think would meet my core need or the
Yeah.
person's core need, like for tidy space, and then the other person's
Hmm.
core need for like, I don't know, like having to remember things or
Right.
something.
Or even maybe just like, um,
Division of
yeah,
labor or
dividing it out in a way where
yeah,
maybe at
like
the
it's
end of
not
the
all in
night,
one place.
each person takes an area of the house and tidies, that kind of thing.
Exactly. So both people get what they need, right? And they're
Yeah.
willing to be flexible
Yeah.
about other pieces. Yeah.
Yeah.
But expectations, yeah, everyone's got expectations
Yeah.
and that's okay and normal. It's just how
Mhm.
you communicate them. You have to have them be known to your partner and have a
Yeah.
plan, right?
Right.
Say yes if you can say yes. If you can't, then there needs to be more discussion there. And maybe that's where you can utilize the compromising ovals.
Right. Perfect.
Sound good? Makes sense?
Yeah. Anything else you want to add about compromise or the rapport?
Um, Not really. I don't think so. Just like if you can agree with your partner's core needs, you want to do it, yield to them because you'd hope that they would do it for you.
Yeah.
Um, that's it, really. Approach everything like you love your partner, right?
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
a thread throughout today's
Right.
conversation in the
Yeah.
rapport as well as in compromise. Actually, no, I do have one thing.
Yeah.
In something we talked about in a previous episode is how, um, like the friendship of the relationship, well, that's
Mm-hmm.
one side of the coin, and we have our conflict is the other, and communications
Yeah.
the other side of the coin. You can see how both of those go hand in hand, even in these conversations, right? About
Hmm.
conflict. In that, if we have a lot of money in that emotional bank account, if we are feeling
Yeah.
loved, if we feel known by our partner, we're gonna be wanting to be flexible with them.
Yeah.
For the most part, we are getting what we need, right?
Right.
So it's not enough just to focus on one part of the relationship, but we need
Yeah.
to work on both simultaneously.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay, that's it. That's the episode.
That's the episode, guys. Thank you for listening, and we will hopefully, fingers crossed, have a guest next time.
Yes.
And so that's exciting. Please feel free to also share, like, repost everything to get more viewers
Comments,
so that,
questions.
yeah, all of the above. So we can definitely like reach a larger audience and answer more questions if you have them. And yeah, and look into topics that are interesting to you guys as well. So
Perfect.
thank you, and we'll see you next time.